"If you're so unhappy, Jake," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "The door's right there." She said it like it meant nothing. Like 3 years together meant less than the latte she was holding. I remember staring at that door. I actually looked at it. And for a moment, I thought about leaving right then, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted her to feel what it's like when someone finally calls her bluff. Vanessa always had this habit of talking like she was the main character in a movie no one else was watching. Every sentence came with a performance. Every fight was a scene. Every apology, a rehearsed monologue. And me? I was the audience she took for granted. The guy who clapped no matter how bad the script got. We met in college. Cliché, I know. She was a girl with a camera and an Instagram following, and I was the guy with a plan, but no clue how to live. She liked that. She said I had substance. What she meant was I wasn't like the guys who only wanted her for her looks. Funny how that became my curse later. By the time we graduated, we were living together in a small apartment near the city. I worked long hours at a startup that paid in promises, while she floated between influencer gigs and part-time modeling shoots. Her life looked perfect online, but offline it was chaos. There were mornings she'd wake up crying for no reason, then post a selfie 30 minutes later with the caption, "Grateful for today, Dizzy." I tried to understand her. I really did. But when she started hanging out with Ethan, her photographer friend, something shifted. It started subtle. The late-night edits, the long shoots, the text notifications she'd turned face down on the table. One night, I asked casually, "How come Ethan calls you after midnight?" She didn't flinch. "We're brainstorming, Jake. That's how creative people work. Not everyone lives in spreadsheets." I laughed it off then. I shouldn't have. 2 weeks later, I noticed her wearing a hoodie I didn't recognize. Too big. Not hers. I asked about it. "Oh, Ethan lent it to me," she said, shrugging like it meant nothing. That hoodie haunted me. And that's when I did something I'd never done before. I checked her phone, not because I didn't trust her, but because every instinct in my body screamed that I was being played. I'll never forget that sinking feeling. You know the kind, where your stomach drops before your brain even processes what you're seeing. Messages, late night hearts, voice notes, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow," winking face. The worst part wasn't the flirting. It was the way she talked about me. "Jake's been weird lately," she'd said. "He's so controlling. I think he's jealous because you actually understand me." That was the night I learned what betrayal tastes like. I didn't confront her right away. I wanted to see how deep it went. I wanted her to tell me the truth without me dragging it out of her. But she never did. She kissed me goodnight. She laughed at my jokes. She acted like everything was fine, while Ethan's name kept flashing on her screen. And I realized something. When someone decides to betray you, they stop being your partner long before they ever get caught. So I stopped being hers. Not visibly. Not yet. But quietly, I started pulling away. I stopped doing her laundry. Stopped making her coffee. Stopped playing the role of the dependable boyfriend who'd clean up every mess. And that's when she noticed. "Why are you so distant lately?" she asked one morning. Her voice sugar-sweet, but her eyes sharp. I just smiled. Just busy. She hated that. She thrived on emotional control, the push and pull, the drama. And when I stopped reacting, it terrified her. Because Vanessa didn't love me. She loved the version of me she could control. The more silent I got, the louder her guilt became. She started overcompensating. Surprise dates, flirty selfies, long paragraphs about how our love means so much to me. It almost worked. Until the night I followed her. It was a Friday. She said she was meeting Ethan for a quick shoot. I said nothing, just nodded, kissed her forehead, and wished her luck. She left at 7:30. I gave her 15 minutes, then got in my car. She wasn't at the studio. She was at his apartment. I parked a block away, sat there in silence, watching the lights flicker through the window. It felt like time stopped, every second stretching, taunting me. I didn't go up. I didn't knock. I didn't rage or cry or make a scene. I just watched, and then I drove home. When she came back around midnight, smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, I asked, "Did the shoot go well?" She smiled tired, kissed my cheek, and said, "Yeah, it was perfect." That's when I knew I wasn't going to argue or beg. I was going to make her regret underestimating me. Not with violence, not with words, but with something far worse: silence, success, and truth. Because betrayal only hurts when you still care. And that night, I decided I didn't. After that night, something inside me switched off. Not in a tragic way. More like when a light finally burns out after flickering for too long. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even confront her. I just started watching. People think revenge is loud, dramatic, chaotic, something you scream into existence. But real revenge? It's quiet. It starts when you decide to stop playing their game and start rewriting the rules. The next morning, I woke up before Vanessa, made coffee like usual, acted normal. She kissed my cheek half asleep and mumbled, "You're the best." If only she knew what I had planned. For the first week, I just observed every call, every mood shift, every fake laugh when she typed something on her phone. I became an expert in her patterns. I didn't need to catch her again. I already knew. I just needed her to believe she'd gotten away with it. That's the trick. People destroy themselves faster when they think they won. So I let her win. I started encouraging her to go out more, to do more creative work. I became a supportive boyfriend again, the one who didn't ask questions. And she fell for it. Hard. Within 2 weeks, she was practically living at Ethan's place under the excuse of editing projects. Her stories were full of smiles, sunsets, coffee cups, and captions about chasing dreams. Meanwhile, I was chasing something else: freedom. I started spending more time at work. My boss, seeing my sudden burst of motivation, gave me control of a small marketing campaign. I threw myself into it like a man possessed. For the first time in years, I wasn't working to build a life with her. I was working to build one without her. And it showed. I started dressing better, hitting the gym, talking more confidently in meetings. My coworkers noticed. One of them, a new hire named Mia, noticed most of all. She was nothing like Vanessa. No filters, no fake smiles. Just sharp, kind eyes and a laugh that didn't sound like it needed an audience. We started talking over coffee breaks. At first, it was harmless. She'd tease me about my terrible diet. I'd joke about her obsession with true crime podcasts. But then one day she said something that stuck. "You look like someone who's finally realizing he deserves better." I didn't respond. But inside, something cracked open. That night, when Vanessa came home late again, I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was indifferent. And indifference is the sharpest blade you can wield against someone who feeds on attention. She tried to pick a fight about me being emotionally distant, about how I don't make her feel loved anymore. I looked her in the eye and said, "Maybe that's because I finally stopped trying to prove it." She froze. I could tell she didn't know how to process that. For years, she'd been an emotional puppeteer, pulling strings, controlling outcomes. And now the strings were cut. From that point on, she began unraveling. Her Instagram captions got darker. She started making subtle posts about toxic people and losing herself. Every one of them was clearly aimed at me, and yet I didn't react. Not once. Meanwhile, my campaign at work went viral. We landed a major client, and I got promoted. I was climbing while she was spiraling, and that contrast drove her insane. She'd call me at odd hours just to argue. "You've changed," she'd say. I'd reply calmly, "You're right." It wasn't until one night, about a month later, that she realized something was off. She came home early and found me packing a box. "What are you doing?" she asked. I didn't look up. "Moving out." Her face went pale. "You're leaving?" "I'm just giving you the freedom you've been taking anyway." I said, sealing the box shut. She tried to cry. Crocodile tears, trembling voice, the whole performance. "Jake, please don't do this. I made mistakes. But I didn't stop packing. When you've seen someone lie with a straight face for long enough, even their tears look rehearsed. Finally, she snapped. "So that's it? You're just walking away? After everything we've been through?" I looked at her, calm and cold. You told me the door was always there. Then I walked out. It wasn't cinematic. No big goodbye speech. No yelling. Just silence. And silence hurts people like her more than any insult ever could. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt. Moved into a smaller place. Focused on work. Started hanging out with Mia more, not as a rebound, but as someone who actually saw me. Vanessa tried reaching out a few times. Calls, texts, even showing up at my door once. I ignored her. Then one day, she posted a photo with Ethan, matching outfits. Fake smiles, the whole thing. Caption, new beginnings. I laughed, not out of bitterness, but because I knew how temporary it would be. You see, people who cheat don't do it because they found something better. They do it because they don't know how to value what's real. And Ethan, he was about to learn that lesson too. 2 months later, I got a text from a mutual friend. Bro, did you see Vanessa's post? I opened Instagram. The picture was gone. So were all the happy posts with Ethan. Her feed was suddenly cryptic. Sad quotes, black and white selfies, and captions about self-worth. Turns out, Ethan cheated on her. And just like that, karma clocked in for overtime. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity either. Just a strange kind of peace. Because revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about watching them destroy themselves. It's strange how peace feels when you've lived in chaos for too long. At first, it's uncomfortable, like silence after years of noise. You almost miss the drama, the arguments, the adrenaline, the validation. But then you wake up one morning and realize peace isn't boring. It's freedom. I started building a new version of myself from the ground up, not for her, not even for revenge. Just because I wanted to see who I could be without all that weight. Work became my therapy. I stopped overthinking every text, every tone. My world got smaller, quieter, but it finally made sense. And then there was Mia. We never really decided to start something. It just happened. Long drives after work. Late night talks over takeout. Laughing at stupid things until 2 a.m. She never asked about Vanessa. Not once. But she listened when I eventually told her. I remember the night I opened up. We were sitting on my balcony, city lights flickering below, and I told her everything. Every lie, every excuse, every time I felt like I was losing myself trying to love someone who only loved a reflection of being loved. She didn't pity me. She didn't give me advice. She just said, you deserve to be chosen every single day, not tolerated when convenient. That hit harder than I expected. After that, I stopped looking back. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life started to unravel publicly. Her posts got desperate. Gone with the brand collabs and coffee photos. Now it was vague captions about fake people and starting over. She'd still text sometimes. Hey, can we talk? I miss you. I never replied. Sometimes I'd open a message just to feel nothing, because that was my closure. But karma wasn't done yet. A few weeks later, a friend from her circle told me Vanessa had shown up at one of our old hangouts, drunk, crying, talking about how she messed up everything good in her life. I didn't show up, because you can't save someone who destroyed you and then called it self-expression. But life has a funny way of forcing closure. It was a Saturday afternoon when I saw her again, the first time in months. I was at a coffee shop with Mia, laughing about something dumb, when I felt that familiar chill. Vanessa was standing at the counter. Same brown hair, same fake smile, but she looked different. Tired, thinner, hollow. Her eyes met mine, and for a second I saw recognition flicker and regret. She froze, like she wanted to say something, but Mia reached across the table and touched my hand lightly. That simple gesture said everything. I smiled at Vanessa, not smugly, not coldly, just at peace. She didn't come over. She just grabbed her drink and left. I thought that was the end of it, but it never ended that cleanly. A few days later, she texted again, a long message this time. Jake, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I just need to say it. I messed up. You were good to me. You always were. I thought the grass was greener, but it wasn't even real. I hope you're happy now. I really do. I stared at that message for a long time. A year ago, I would have written back paragraphs. Now I just type one line. Thank you for saying that. I'm doing great. And then I muted her forever. No anger. No satisfaction. Just closure. That night Mia came over and we cooked dinner together. She told me about her dream of starting her own small business. Handmade candles. I helped her brainstorm branding ideas. Funny, right? Me, the guy who once lived in a storm of insecurity, now helping someone else chase their light. Months passed. Work got better. Life got lighter. One day, my boss pulled me into his office. Jake, we're promoting you again. You've been killing it lately. It hit me. The old version of me, the one who used a bag for scraps of affection, wouldn't even recognize this guy. And yet, that old pain was the reason I become him. Because sometimes you have to break completely before you build something real. Mia and I started traveling, short trips at first, a beach weekend, a cabin in the woods. Every time, she'd take photos of me, nothing posed, nothing filtered, just real moments. One night, as we watched the sun set from a cliff, she said quietly, "You ever think about her?" I didn't lie. Sometimes, but not the way I used to. What way is that? The kind that hurts. She smiled softly. Then you're finally free. And she was right. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't want revenge. I didn't even want her to see how good I was doing. Because real revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's living in a way that makes them irrelevant. But the universe wasn't done giving poetic justice. A few months later, out of curiosity, I looked at Vanessa's profile. She deleted most of her posts. The once glamorous influencer had gone radio silent. Through mutuals, I learned Ethan had left her. Same story, different guy. She tried to rebuild her image. But the audience had moved on. The girl who once lived for attention was now a ghost in the algorithm. And me, I was finally living in the present. I never wished her pain, but I did wish her clarity. Because sometimes the best thing you can do for the person who broke you is let them live long enough to realize what they lost. Time has a strange way of healing you when you stop fighting it. A year turned into 2. The pain dulled into memory. The memory faded into perspective. And eventually, the name Vanessa stopped feeling like a wound. It became just part of the story. By then, Mia and I had moved in together. Life felt calm, unforced, real. We had routines, lazy Sunday mornings, grocery store debates over cereal brands, inside jokes that made no sense to anyone but us. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I wasn't looking over my shoulder or scrolling through someone's life to measure my own. For the first time, I was living for me. But as life would have it, closure has a funny way of coming back when you least expect it. It happened one evening, almost 3 years after breakup. I was leaving a networking event downtown, one of those corporate mixers with fake smiles and warm champagne, when I saw her. Vanessa, she was standing near the exit, holding a drink she wasn't drinking, wearing a dress that didn't fit like it used to, still beautiful, but not radiant, not alive in the way she used to be when the whole world revolved around her reflection. She noticed me instantly. Her expression froze between surprise and something that looked like regret. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she smiled, small, unsure. "Jake!" I nodded. "Hey!" There was a pause, the kind that stretches time. "You look different," she said finally. "Good different." "Thanks." I replied, polite but detached. "How have you been?" She hesitated. "I've been trying. Things are different now. I'm not really online much anymore." I nodded again. "That's probably a good thing." She laughed softly. It wasn't fake this time, just tired. "Yeah, turns out the internet doesn't fix loneliness." There was honesty in her voice I hadn't heard before. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger or satisfaction. Just empathy, distant, harmless empathy. She looked down at her drink, then back up at me. "I heard about your promotions. You're doing really well." "I've been lucky," I said. "Working with good people helps." Another pause. She shifted slightly. then said, I saw a picture of you and your girlfriend, right? Mia? Yeah, I said, smiling without realizing it. She's amazing. Vanessa nodded slowly. She looks like it. The silence after that was different. Not awkward, not tense. Just human. Like two people who finally understood the cost of everything they'd lost and gained. She took a deep breath. Jake, I know it's been a long time, but I really am sorry. Not just for what I did, but for the way I made you feel small. You didn't deserve that. I didn't rush to answer. I just looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who once made me question my worth was now standing in front of me, fragile and human, owning her mistakes. And in that moment, I realized forgiveness isn't something you give for them. It's something you give for yourself. So I said, I forgive you, not out of pity, not because she asked for it, but because I was finally free enough to mean it. She smiled faintly, eyes glassy. Thank you. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. Then she said, You were always the kindest person I knew. I just didn't know how to love you back then. I nodded. We were both learning. We just learned in different ways. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye. No lingering tension. She left first, disappearing into the crowd like a ghost finally at peace. I walked outside, breathing in the cool night air. For a second, I closed my eyes and remembered everything. The fights, the betrayal, the nights I couldn't sleep, the version of me that thought love meant sacrifice. And then I let it go, because that chapter wasn't meant to define me. It was meant to refine me. When I got home that night, Mia was way on the couch, half asleep, wrapped in a blanket. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. Hey, she murmured. You're late. Ran into someone from the past. I said, quietly, hanging my jacket. She raised an eyebrow. Someone important? Used to be, I said, sitting beside her. Not anymore. She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and whispered, Good. And in that simple moment, I realized something. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the person who hurt you. It means remembering them without letting it hurt anymore. That night, as Mia drifted off beside me, I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. Peace, confidence, love, myself. If you ask me now whether I regret that relationship, I'd say no. Because without it, I never would have learned what real love feels like. The kind that doesn't need to be posted. The kind that doesn't demand to be proved. The kind that simply is. Sometimes the best revenge isn't karma or payback or public vindication. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming the kind of person who no longer needs it. Epilogue. A few months later, Mia and I took a trip to the coast. On our last day, as the sun dipped below the water, she asked me to take a photo of her. When I did, she turned around and said, Now, one of you. I laughed. You'll just make fun of my face. She smirked. Exactly. But when she showed me the photo, I barely recognized myself. Not because I looked different, but because, for the first time, I looked genuinely happy. And that's the thing about healing. You don't notice it happening day by day. You just wake up one day, take a breath, and realize you're no longer hurting. You're finally free. And with that, our story comes to an end. But the real story begins with your thoughts. What would you do if you were in this situation? Let me know in the comments.